Hello, my friends. I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And it is the last day of June, or the first day of July. What is it? Day first? Could be the first. Uh, 4th of July is coming. 4th of July weekend. It is a dreary, kind of a crappily humid day out there. No wind whatsoever. Lots of rain supposed to be coming, but it's kind of coming in fits and starts, which is fine. I set it up so I've got basically a 4-day weekend because I don't get to have paid vacations. I don't get to take vacations. I kind of need a little bit of a break, so that's, I guess, means I'll work my butt off for the last 3 days of next week, but it is the way that goes too. So we're looking at Cycle 14 for a game not traveled, or my would-be Interstellar Frontiers or Stellar Frontiers. I never settled on a title because somebody always kept telling me, "Oh, they already have games with those names," so I'm kind of effed no matter what I did. So once again, I went through my exchange for the cycle. My last of the cruise liners have left, so I don't have any large banks in orbit unloading money and buying resources off of me right now, which is not necessarily a terrible thing. My government expenses for the cycle are still about 77.8 credits, and I'm still getting in about 27 credits for property taxes and income taxes, that kind of stuff. And so that said, the exchange is working like it's supposed to. My mining ships are bringing supplies in. I'm also acquiring resources and minerals from or manufactured material from visiting ships. And between those and the mining and mining my planet, I have managed to breach the negative cusp, so I'm going to generate profit unless something catastrophic happens to shut it down, or I really extend myself at that point, which is kind of what we want because now I have some spending power. So when the opportunities come to purchase things from ships that coming in and stuff, especially ship components, it just expedites that sort of thing. So my total positive income for the total of cycle 13 would have been 516.10 credits, with a negative of 291.36 credits, gave me a net profit for the cycle of 224.74, which gives me a base in my account of 851.51 credits. And if you figure a credit in the Imperium eye of things, it'd be the equivalent of, I don't know, $1 million or damn close. Or 100,000. I mean, that's the thing about economy and economics and games in general. They can be quite out there. Uh, nobody sets out to nobody sets out to create a tabletop game of any sort really that's totally dominated on anyway. Never mind. So and I went down through my list and checked all my stuff. I'm still currently making production runs of AR rifle or automatic rifles or ARs, and that gives me an additional 25 to add to my inventory, which I don't have. So I need to add that category. So I guess this is the first cycle. AR automatic rifle, which is a Tech 2 item. I now currently have 25 in the warehouse, and more likely or not, I'm going to shift those items to those weapons to current units that I already have and agents and stuff, exchanging any ballistic rifles for the ARs, the automatic rifles, because that's the way to go. And I want to produce a couple more production runs of it to get my stockpile set up just a hair, because it won't be too much longer, and I will absolutely have to formally set up the militia and the home guard and stuff because I'm going to have an encounter that's going to involve combat at some point on a significant scale. It's the same thing with agents and special op teams, and I call them shadow teams. These are the 5-man squads that are designed to accompany or be as backup for other operations, such as what Caramichael or Fred Dodge is participating in. And last cycle we also had an interesting event where a pair of street samurai put on an exhibition of prowess in the city streets. And if you consider the city streets the way they are currently, and I'm planning on doing a video on infrastructure because I think it's due and it's important. It's kind of a foundation for all the production that goes on the planet, and it's one of those things you got a necessary evil that you got to keep throwing resources at because it's a hole. It's an endless hole. But at the end of the day, it's it. So these guys are basically Ronin street warriors. Now, street samurai. If you know anything about Shadowrun, think of Shadowrun when you think of street samurai because that's the more likely case. You're going to have some people that are cybernetically or organically enhanced in ways to create a much more superior martial art fighter. Somebody whose sole purpose in life is mono combat. And whenever possible. These are people you'd like to have for your special agents and to tap as for your private security forces and things like this. They have value. They also have value as if their tech level is high enough, as teachers to teach some of those martial arts skills and melee weapon skills and things like that to your agents and people, so that they're worth having. So I'm looking at sending. I'm going to actually need to create my chief of the watch, which is the person who runs the protector service for my house, and you start out with the potential of having up to 2 platoons worth, which is 50 people, and that sounds like a lot, and it is. But when you break it down from a different perspective, usually your watch rarely goes into the field as a platoon level. These are usually broken up into squads and individuals. So your house lord is always going to have protectors nearby. Ideally in the same damn room, but that's not always practical. So ideally nearby. Some of them, when you get to the point where your electronics and your capabilities for your security systems have become more advanced, then you would have some of them tasked to those positions. Although there are technicians you can assign to that, so you can free up your troops. And then you also have to take into account 24/7 protection. So when you look at 25, let's just say 25, bodyguards. They're not all 25 on 24/7. It's not practical. So you're going to have them in shifts of either 8 hours or 10 hours, depending on however you want to set up your time system. And then they're going to be some in late shift, morning shift, afternoon shift kind of stuff, and then every day of the week. So ideally you want to give them some days off. I mean, this is semantics. If you choose not to do that, that's on you. There's actually a mechanic or two in there that can be applied if their needs have gone unmet, and that includes things like sleep and food. So you can, you could actually have your bodyguards turn on you and kill you. I mean, there's mechanics in the game system for that very event. It could very well happen. It's just a matter of how poorly you treat them and how bad things go, or how corrupt the system is allowed to get, because it's potentially possible somebody could to bribe your bodyguards to off you. Welcome to Rome, right? So it's one of those things. I'm looking at sending my chief protector down there to at least negotiate with these people, talk to them, and to see what they're about, see if they're looking for employment, or if they're just there to, some of them are just passing through, and they do the put on these exhibits and things in part to showcase their prowess and their abilities to all the local natives and things like this, to get tips, to get money. I mean, it's possible. So it's a matter of things like that. Meanwhile, I'm looking at my R&D is still 4 cycles out from completing their attempt at researching the bounce beast's coding to see if its stun capability can be milked or something to create a weapon or devices for my house. I also have 4 more cycles of completion before my second Star Drive 2 is finished, and my first batch of Sublight Drive 1s is complete. And our housing concern, one, which will double the housing capacity for our planet, are currently maxed out at 50. Our maximum capacity is 15,000 and a few oddballs, because we got a couple of those little prefab outfits that set up this is, you see, this is where these things come into play. So we have a 1%er, one of our wealthy yahoos, has set himself up a little berg outside of the main colony on the capital planet, and so there's some housing there, and then there's some housing at the pirates haven, and so on and so forth. So these things, accumulate, although those are minuscule amounts. We're talking 20, 30 housing for 20 to 30 versus 10 to 15,000. So we're basically building another housing, another entire town or a district of our capital. It's a matter of how you want to look at it. And when we get to that completion phase of the housing build, we'll go a little more detail into how that particular build functions, because you have options there for it, and how you want to place it on the planet you build it on. So that's got 2 more cycles to go, and I also have 2 more cycles for my my Minister of Intelligence's dojo to produce its first batch of trained agents and for use, and that includes Chastity Blake, who was, what you remember, 3 cycles ago, or 4 cycles, 3 cycles ago, I negotiated with and hired a shadow sensei to basically start myself a training program to improve the skill sets of my agents. It's just like eventually, some point, we're going to run across either above the board cyberdoc or a below the board shadow doc, and set them up in office and acquire the cybernetic equipment and stuff we need in order to further enhance our agents and our troops. I mean, that's kind of the part of the goal in the long run of this sort of stuff. So that's just bringing that sort of stuff up to par. And so we're going to move on to getting our rolls for this cycle going, and some of my things I want to do for cycle 14. No, I'm sorry. It is currently cycle 13, not 14. 14 was last time, so it's cycle 15. So what I'm looking to do for cycle 15, in addition to this, potential other videos would be, of course, the Chief Watch to negotiate with the Street Samurai. My Xeno Scouts on Kepit's Folly are going to make another attempt to get samples of the virus. Fred Dodge is continuing to observe the Smuggler Chief event that occurred last cycle to see if we can figure out some more information about it. And Kara Carmichael is going to follow up on the Pirates' unloaded cargo of computers, because if we can find a way to purchase that 60 odd tons of computers from the Pirates for a reasonably fair price, I'm willing to do that, because that'll give me 66 freaking tons of damn computers in the warehouse, which will help in a lot of ways. So we'll look at that when the time comes down to it. And alright, so I'm going to keep marking all these pages to remind me just what the heck I'm doing here and where I'm at, because I think it's not hard to lose your place in some of this stuff, and then you gotta either kind of ad-lib it or make it up as you go. So one of the things we were doing is continuing to explore our system around us. So I'm not going to turn the map around, but this is Fairwind, and this is the adjacent light years around us that we now know are either suns. There's a pulsar hazard there, which we don't want to go anywhere near anymore. And frankly, I don't like how close it is to Fairwind. And there actually is a one nasty event that could be played off of this that could affect Fairwind, and I hope I don't roll it in any time soon. And we'll go down through that park. So we have basically searched or explored a 9 light year square or rectangle. All the light years on the same level as Fairwind adjacent. So now we have above fair wind and below fair wind. So what we're going to do is we're going to go GG, and this is no 07. So 6. This would be below. So we're going to go down below and look exactly where fair wind is, because space is 3-dimensional, maybe even 4 or 5 dimensions for all we know. 14 and 0, or O, excuse me, O14, and O14 here is that little dot there. And we're using before I get into making a roll, let me confirm that I've got fuel and supplies. Yeah. So we're still using that rented sloop, which has come into considerable, use to us, and we were lucky to get that roll early on. And no, I don't fudge rolls, so I'm taking that. There's no point to me making up rolls and saying, "Oh, well, let me turn this dice just a hair so I get the result I want." So you didn't see me turn the die. No, what's the point of that? You're cheating yourself. Why roll dice? I mean, you get bored with this thing really damn fast if you're not allowing the game's chaos factor to do its job, in my opinion. So anyway, we was lucky to get the sloop, and I need to adjust its supplies on board, so we know when it has to go back and resupply. See, the irony of this particular sloop's design, it's not very efficient. I mean, it's functional and it works. The downside is that it uses 2 tons of fuel every cycle it does anything, and it only carries 14. So you only have 7 cycles worth of fuel on board, as opposed to having 10 cycles of food, oxygen, and water. And so we're using 1 ton of those every cycle. We're going to burn through our fuel unless we're just parked somewhere, and that's possible. You can park your ship somewhere and not use your fuel, but you're going to use the consumables. You will always use the consumables unless it's docked on a planet with a habitable colony on it. If you go to a world that you don't control and it doesn't have an actual spaceport on the planet, so if we were to go to a smuggler's den someplace, we are going to be consuming our supplies on board our ship, unless we can purchase more consumables from the haven, and that is an event, a negotiation, etc., or a raid. I guess if that's what you want to go down and do, I don't know. So anyway, we're going to go and explore, and once again, we want sector GG. So if we look at our quadrant is GG. And it is level or location 14-0, and 0 is always O, and then it is on the plane of 07N, and then we're going to get our exploration chart. Let me get this and put this away. Put them in the right places. And let's see, I want to have new system exploration, which is chart 6. All right, and we're going to roll to see what kind of star, and hope we haven't just destroyed the sloop in the process. 57. 57 is an A2- Roman numeral 2 with an asteroid belt. Alright, so we know there's a sun, and it's not an asteroid belt's actually a good thing. We're going to really like the asteroid. Well, maybe we will, maybe we don't. The thing about asteroid belts, all right, all planets, regardless of their habitable or not, have mineral resources. How many is based on that exploration roll when we initially set it up, but there's usually a cap around 5 to 7, And moons have even less because statistically they're smaller. So the mechanics allow for that. So you would have between 2 and 4 on a good sized moon, and an errant might have 1, maybe 2. An errant would be Pluto, and by definition it's not considered it's too small to be really a planet. Would be a moon if it was orbiting Earth or something like that, because it's by itself, or more or less orbiting something that once was called a moon to Pluto. It's kind of considered a neoplanet or a planetlet, and I call it an errant. Anyway, although errants might not be appropriate for that, they actually serve a different role. Anyhow, the fact is the asteroid belt tends to have a D10 plus 2 or something like that. So potentially you could have 12 mineral resources in the asteroid belt, and if you can get a rich one with some really good rolls, then that asteroid belt is extremely valuable to you, and there's many ways to exploit it. One of them being, of course, is to build mining platforms, and at some point we will probably get to that, and we will do that. It's like building a ship. You're building a space station for a mining platform, literally what it is. And then you would leave it in the asteroid field or on the edge of it, and you would man it with people and supply. You'd have to keep it supplied in your ships. So your cargo ships would come and retrieve cargo and bring supplies. And it would also be able to, you could expand on it and add other options to it, and turn it into a patrol base for the base non-FTL ships in the system, starfighters and shuttles and things like this. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities in that option, or in that asteroid field. And we're talking a difference between a field and a belt, because there is a difference in the mechanics. One is much vaster. A field is much bigger than a belt, in my research anyway. So also means that the asteroid belt is not the entirety of the system. So and need control sheet. Reminding myself, put notes down to remind myself to what I need to do for that one. So then we would move this over there, blah blah blah. But since we're not quite there yet, we will set up one for it, because I suspect we're going to do a lot of mining in this system. So we're going to put the stats A2 A2-2, and I'm going to put an asterisk here to remind myself that there's an asteroid belt in there. And I'm once again, it's possible to actually have multiple asteroid belts in a system, and there's 1 or 2 exploration roles where the entire system is nothing but an asteroid field, and so there's no anything larger than an errant in the system, and it means you can still colonize stuff. It's just much more expensive to do it. But once again, I once had a system that I rolled up that had four asteroid belts in it and several planets, including a gas giant that had damn near 24 damn moons on it. So that became a crucial system to my house, because the sheer amount of resources that were concentrated in one system allowed me to do multiple things going on with using less material and effort, and to benefit from. And in addition to that, that meant I needed to defend the system and make sure it remained my system. And to do that, I of course established a naval presence and a military presence to the best I could, because that's what you do. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. Let's write down the line. So we are going back here to the Hanmore, and this is the swamp planet with I believe with the indigenous population on it. Let's take a look at our mining ship. Our mining ship is getting almost full. No, that can't be right. Did I roll all that up? What? 10, 25, 34, 44, 51, 64, 78. Okay, this thing's full. So that makes me wonder, did I not move it last time and forgot to unload it? It might be too late now because I don't think it got I don't think it got it got unloaded, but all this here didn't get function. B kind of boron we got. Oh, LA. Yeah, it never got unloaded. So I wasn't paying attention to that, to the resources on board, the supplies and crap. That would be on me. So anyway, I'm going to move it back to the capital. That way it can get unloaded. And my other ship here needs to be unloaded and then dispatched. That brings us back to Hardmore. And the Caramali Scout, we still have 3 tons of supplies of consumables and 4 tons of fuel. So we're going to go ahead and do a exploration roll of Handmore. The Handmore system. Is this the planet? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure because I got Handmore written up here, but I don't have it down here. So I'm gonna have to come up with a name for this damn planet because I don't think I'm named. If I did, I didn't write it down. And we're going to change the stats, of course, on the supplies so we don't F it up again like we did the mining ship the last cycle. So, alright, so we're going to make an exploration roll of the planet. At some point we got to come back and finish exploring the whole system because this is 10%. Coordinate paperwork, come on you. That's the downside of having the stuff inside these sleeves. Is sometimes they don't want to come back out very easily. Come on. And of course I trimmed my nails yesterday, so there we go. Come on, get your finger under there. There we go. I'm going to change that 50% to 60%. Regardless how it turns out. Yeah, fire it, go get in there. And then we're going to want planetary exploration, page 15. And we'll determine which chart we're rolling on, one of the 3 charts. And we have 19. 19's chart 1, so chart 1. And that's 11. What is 11? Hey, what the F? No. No, this is... Oh, for the love of God. Well, I'd like to cuss a lot right about now because I really don't need this. I already had this one before. So we already have another planet with this. Now I've got another one. So an industrial age civilization discovered true alien genome. They have developed chemical rocket technology and are slowly exploring their own system. D100 times 1 million plus... So far, the place has gone unnoticed by the greater galaxy. Aliens are xenophobic and gain a negative 50 for first contact in any sat rolls. If they notice the house exploration efforts, they see them as a pending invasion and attack circa 1950s Earth. Yeah, right. Jesus. You know, now this is, I've said this early on in the beginning. I brought this up that this game has a tendency to tell its own story, and things develop and change. And so now I have several worlds within light years of each other that have 1950s isk civilizations on them, considerable people, and it almost screams to suggest that at one time there was a stellar entity out here, a house of some sort, or a government of some sort. Somebody at some point established a area. I mean, a stellar empire out here, and then something happened to it, and it devolved. It collapsed, or it's went to war and shagged each other to the point where they had to rebuild, or something even more exotic could be at play. And it's the fact that I've run into so many guild ships in the area as well tells me it's hard for me to say that nobody ever noticed this. And without going, and I have to go through the back and through all my notes for the planet and get them all organized, so I know exactly what was found when and what during the exploration, so I'm not double down. But this has happened in a couple times during the beta eras, beta play, and I had at least two different players come up with event roles that basically had multiple civilizations on the same world, and we rolled with it in the aspect that if you look at Earth is actually numerous civilizations that coexist. There's no one unified civilization on Earth. It's like just like saying there's no one unified language on Earth. Well, that would hold true in other situations as well, including this. So that's one of those possibilities that we can consider. So anyway, we'll look at before we go any further. This one's bad enough. So we're going to do a D100 and 38. 38 times 1 million. So 38 million plus 25. So 38, 58, 63 million. 63 million alien. And it says, and it's specific right here, true alien. So that gives us some options, some opportunities. Obviously, first contact is going to be a bitch. It's got a negative 50 right out the bat, and my house is a square, which means I have a negative 50 right out the bat, and they stack. So now, basically, I will have absolutely no way of having a friendly first contact with these people. It's going to be ugly, and it's going to be bad. The question is how do I manage that? How do I achieve it? And how can I bring them numbers down to my favor? Well, if I have a crack negotiator and a crack first contact team, which is not likely, where their modifiers grossly impact my massive negatives against me, and bring them down to something that's still a reasonable chance of success, even though even reasonable, anything with 50-60% chance or less of them of failure is terrible. So I mean, even on those par, you're still flipping a quarter. Take your chances. The other possibilities, of course, over time is to build up my house's ability. So if I get to a point where I can just overwhelmingly show up and impress the crap out of them, like I said, my first house run, myself personally, I ran across one of these, but they were much more less civilized, or much more less developed. I think they were Bronze Age, and basically I sent over a platoon of militia and a cocky commander, and she bullshitted the entire world into believing that she represented a goddess, and they turned it into a religion really quick. And my Shadans exploited it because Shadans like that sort of thing. They do like to exploit people, especially if they're stupid. That's just the nature of the world and universe. So that is going to be ush, right? I could live without that roll. I mean, because so that's one of those things where you go, geez, do I go back and re-roll? No. So this is Handmore. This is a system already has 2 planets in the first 10%, and I haven't even checked the other half of it. So, I mean, I still got to go check this thing out. That's that one with that really exotic, weird atmosphere and stuff. And, geez. Alright, so now we are in our home system of Fairwind, and these bad boys need to get unloaded. So, I got to make a note of crap in my crap to-do list so I don't forget. Unload the mining ships. Because I don't want to fiddle with that right now on the screen. These videos sometimes tend to they tend to run long anyway. So what we want is to do though is start with some of our basics in, let's see, pop growth. And we did a D. It's basically a 1D3, but since I have I use a D4. Ignore the 4. So let's see, we get a 2. And let's see, this calculator's garbage, so sometimes it wants to work. Ever since that cat threw up on it, it's not quite been the same. So 0.02 plus my planetary population growth of 0.008. 0.008 equals, and we take that times our current population, 11,229 equals 314. So we're going to add 314 to our population. Now, if you consider we're on cycle 14 or 15, and we only settled about 10 cycles ago. So we've only been cycled for about 10 weeks. And in those 10 weeks, or 10 cycles, however you want to do your math, update that to 15, is I have added almost 2,000 population. I started with 10, and we've been growing, plus we had some influx from some passenger liners as well. So we add that, and our current housing concern, if you remember I mentioned that earlier in the video, is that we have only enough housing for 15,000 people. And that's 15,000 give or take 100. And that 15,000 isn't very, so right now our optimum housing is at 10,000. So now we're now at 11,543. And so what we've got going on here is this population growth, and our existing housing is full. And so now people are being forced to double up and to share. And then people tend to get grumpy or grouchy or completely downright violent the worse, the more crowded the conditions get. And so when you hit that 150% or 50% of your max. So if at 15,000, I'm actually 1.5 over what I'm supposed to have. So I'm really pushing it. So by adding that other housing concern, I'm going to double down, which will give me my population of potential between 20 and 30,000 before I need to build a third housing concern. And who knows what will crop up in the events and things between now and then that will allow me to dodge around that. So we got 11,543, and this also increases my tax revenue. So my tax revenue every cycle gradually increases because there's more population to tax. That's just the way that plays out, you know. I mean, kind of what you want. Let me put that back in there. All right, so population growth. And we're going to see what kind of event roll for the cycle. And our event rolls are going to be on page... Yeah, come on, where you at? Very first thing on my list too. Look right past it. Page 30. So we'll go look at page 30. Okay. So we'll see one of two charts. No, one of three charts. And we will get 52, which is chart 2. So, oh yeah, 90. 90 on chart 2. Please do not be something nut job or psychotic. 90 is pretty high. Usually when you get them really high numbers, anything under 10 and over 90 can be oof. There's some options, you know. And we have a multi-list. So my system control network, or my SCN techs, picked up a ghost transmission coming from somewhere in the solar system, and it says to roll a D10. So that means there's a possibility. We've got a ghost signal. In the system, and we're going to roll one dice, and we're going to get a 1, and well, I could have rolled 2 dice, but yeah, it's a D100, so let's do, no, it says D10 here and D100 there. Go effing figure. We'll do the 100 because that's what it really is. 64 leads to a guild outpost. Okay, I don't like that. I don't like the idea of a guild having an outpost in my system. And my system's not. The system's 100% explored, but I still have that errant, and I still have a little bit. Fairwind is completely researched or searched, and Second Chance is not completely. You know what? If I find that bastard sitting on that one habitable planet, I'm gonna. I don't know. I'll probably make him leave. Make him pay through the nose, one of the two. You bastards better not be on Kepis Folly. Kepis Folly, jeez. Yeah. We will have to see how that plays out, because that's something I'm going to have to come back and give some thought to and figure out what the hell to do. So, ship traffic. Number 1. Alright, so let's get to ship traffic. Ship traffic rolls on page 51. Come on. And, 48, 49, that's a car, yep. Alright. So, we're going to roll which one of the 3 charts, 2 charts to use. 44. Man, these charts took these took a couple of years to write these things, because they kept evolving, they kept changing. And it's weird how you can fire off a whole lot of stuff real fast, and then suddenly you pause, and it drives you crazy. So we have NPC house-owned merchant. That's different. Roll for a haul, of course. So, basically what this reads is NPC house owned, merchant ship arrives, roll haul class, don't forget your apply your noble status modifier. So we have a -50 as always when we roll haul classes. And we've got our little handy little chart right there, so we'll just bang that out right now. 58 minus 50 gives us an 8, which puts us at a class 3. That's not too bad. So it's a bulk hauler. I mean, bulk hauler, that's about a 249 ton vessel. So a cargo transport. No, it could be a bulk hauler. So potentially it could be carrying upwards of 800 or 900 tons of cargo on board, which is a pretty good idea, a good thing. The downside is we're talking a house. So our house is a government entity established through the nobility system that the Imperium operates, and then a merchant, or in this case, a merchant vessel belonging to a NPC house, which could be adapted to represent another player's house if you were running a game with multiple players involved in it. That's up, that would be up to a situational thing at that point. But in this case, that's implying someplace within a reasonable jump distance is a rival house. How big is it? Well, we have an advantage because we're still squires, so it's not likely to be much bigger than us. Uh, but we really don't want another house adjacent to us if we can avoid it. But we may not be able to avoid it, which has its own set of issues and challenges and interesting conundrums, and we shall see what kind of rabbit hole that turns into, because obviously we're going to have our Minister of Affairs go down there and talk to the affairs. It's turned into a busy cycle. NPC house merchant. May even be, if not the Ministry of Affairs, and potentially Minister of Commerce, or both of them, because ideally we want to know what kind of stuff's on there. We're going to know what's in their ship anyway, because we're going to roll for it. But we want to talk to the ship captain to get information as to who, what, why, and where. What house you belong to, where the hell you're located. And there's no guarantee that that captain will tell us any of that information openly. And like I said, there's just so many possibilities. It just boggles the brain. So we'll go and do our second traffic roll. Let's see what the hell that turns out. Oh yeah. Right. All right, 31. Where you at? I had a sticker. I had a little sticky thing on there, that page, but that was one that Frankie chewed off. Right now, Mom is out in the living room with the wife, and the other cats are. Everybody's in the house right now because the weather's been questionable out there, and it's humid. Plus, there's the we've been dealing with a lot of that. A lot of y'all probably have been dealing with it too, but we've had a lot of smoke issues from the fires coming out of Canada. Pretty thick and nasty. In a couple days down here was pretty bad, and then you add that to the 4th of July. So there's a lot of people firing off fireworks. Obviously, it's ironic because it's legal to buy them and sell them in Iowa for a couple weeks prior to the 4th. So the weeks leading up to the 4th is intense. There's fireworks stands everywhere. Much to the chagrin of Missouri, where everybody used to go to Missouri to buy our fireworks. And but yet most of the metropolitan areas have said no, you can't fire your fireworks. You're not legally supposed to use fireworks within the city limits. Although I live in unincorporated Des Moines, which means I live in just outside the city limits, but within the county of Polk County, or in Polk County, and so I fall under the county's regulations and requirements, which means you can, we can open burn here year round, and we can have cars, junk cars, and I could fill my entire backyard with junk, and nobody would say boo. But if I was 2 blocks to the south, that would become a major problem because I'm now in the city, and the city doesn't like that sort of thing. So, ship traffic roll. Number 2, and we need to see. Oh, that's planetary event rolls. Rolls. All right, and which chart we rolling from? 32, which would be chart 1. Chart 1, so 58. Oh, I got a busy set of stuff. So we have a ComStat repair and replacement transport lays over. One cycle of R&R has 1D10 5 used with servable ComStats for sale at half a new price. Right? And then we have a small list to see who owns it. So let's just roll and see who owns it. 07. So it belongs to the Imperium Star Navy. Well, isn't that special? ComStat repair. It has, what was that? Because this is something I might want to spend some of that surplus cash I got on. Because ComStats have value and have purpose. And one of those things where we run down the road and figure out. So there are, according to this, a roll of 5 plus 5. So 10 has 10 used ComSat for sale. Half price. Right? That's not bad. So, and mechanics speaking, when we look at our light years, the system communications network that's established in the Fairwind system was one of the builds that came with the colony. One of the things that set a house or an official colony apart from unofficial colonies that crop up is things like this. And so it gives us a 6 light year range in all directions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So everything within my region of space for 6 light years. So this includes this entire map, and then 6 above it and 6 below it. And that communication then can communicate with any ship that I control or anybody controls in this region. And at a future enough point, technically speaking, I would be able to track a lot of that too, depending on the level of technology and stuff that I want to go through and the amount of bullshit I want to do paperwork-wise. But the ComSats, the further away you get from this base, so when we get past the 6 light years, so when we get to an adjacent region, my ships are now no longer in communications range because I'm using a lower tech system of communications, and the range, and of course there's higher tech, and then there's some plugins that you can get for your ships, and then of course the communications technicians play a huge role. They extend the range of your communications. Why is this important? Well, let's just use a hypothetical. Hypothetical is my calamari, let's just call it squid, scout, has a misjump and jumps 11 light years away. And the misjump was just that. It just jumped in the wrong, it ended up overshooting where it was supposed to come out at, and ends up 11 years instead of, say, 2 years. Went to jump 2 light years, ends up traveling 11. Now it's outside of communication range with the house, which means I don't know where I'm the game as the player, I know where my scout is, but the house does not, and the house can't communicate to it. So as the player, my house cannot send a relief ship to go get the scout. If something damaged that scout, there's no way for my house to know that that scout survived, let alone is or isn't damaged and what situation it might be in. And it might take several cycles to travel to where the scout is, based on my scout's jump capacities and things like this, but they would need to move closer. I would need to move within 6 light years of the scout for my ship. So at this point, I need another ship or shuttle or communications thing out here somewhere that can then relay that communications and make that connection. So ideally, if my scout gets lost, I can't go retrieve it. So unless the scout can find its way back before its supplies run out, yeah, I'm fucked. Or another ship comes along and I can either get them to give me assistance or send for help or go get help or sell me more provisions so I don't run out of stuff. And at that point it can become a kind of a harebrained, diabolical desperate kind of scenario because or it could turn out to be quite well. I know of one player that had something similar happen. Excuse me, and it was one of their mining ships, and they were really upset about it. And they lucked into the system they lucked into. They had a breathable planet that was not toxic to people and had breathable water, had potable water on it, so their mining ship was able to set down. And of course, it still ran out of consumables, but they had water and they had native stuff that they were able to try to consume. And we actually rolled to see if they, croaked from eating the native stuff without having any proper research facilities, and they were successfully able to not do so. And their mining ship allowed them to mine, so they were able to mine more water, so they kept plenty of water on their ship. Water was not a problem for them, and they started exploring, and their exploration role actually turned up something, and I don't remember but it had to do with people, and it turned into a much viable colony for the house, that player's house down the road. But it was just the amount of things we had to go through to figure out how to role play that game out, or to roll out that scenario so it made sense and worked, was part, how you develop these rules and stuff over time. These rule books don't get to be as thick as they are just because somebody thought, hey, this sounds cool. I mean, they really do a lot of play testing and effort and time and what works and what don't work. And I've said this numerous times in the past. It's a domino thing. You toss your dice and see how shit goes. And sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it don't go well. And if you don't fudge with it, you just roll with the problems, cope with it, and deal with it. So that's an interesting break or thing. So I mean, yeah, I'm going to definitely purchase some com set. So ideally the com set, eventually in settled systems, you go closer to the core, closer to the central areas of the Imperium, well, even the well-populated fringe areas. Every system is going to have a communications network in it. SCNs, they interlink with each other, and they just keep building into more powerful networks. So it's quite possible for people within 10 light years of each other to hold regular communications and regular conversations and play video games, do business deals and things like that through the holonet in live time, because of how intricate the communication networks are in those areas. We are beyond the fringe, so ours is non-existent at best. It's lackadaisical at best, and non-existent at worst. And so by buying these 10 comsats, I could then choose to say jump three light years out and drop a comsat here, 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 and here, which then extends the range of my communications abilities. They also serve as a communication links. So if I find the location of this NPC house, and it's something I want to pursue from negotiations, from trade and things like this, at this point, I'm going to want to create a trade corridor between my capital and their capital, and to do that, these satellites play roles. And there's other satellites. There's marker satellites. There's holo projection. There's holo satellites. There's a number of different types. And claim markers are another one I'm going to have to do. Start manufacturing some, because there are systems. For example, the system that we just discovered that has a frickin' other population in it. 50 to 63 million aliens. Well, we're going to want to keep an eye on them, and we also might want to keep other people out, legally keep them out of the system. We would put a claim marker sat in their system and hope that the aliens don't come across it and destroy it, because they have that potential technology to do that, until I can develop the ability to cloak or to disguise my claim marker satellite. It's going to take its risks like everything else. But the idea is that other Imperium licensed warship ships of any sort come into the system, and they get pinged by that damned claim marker saying, hey, this belongs to the House Fairwind, it's the House Fairwind system, and it's protected, kick rocks, leave. You're not allowed to, and then I can through that claim marker, you can have leave a list of do's and don'ts, and what's don't want nobody messing with them, or worse, be aware that they're crazy and that they will attack you on sight with their nuclear-powered spaceships and nuclear-powered missiles, so on and so forth. So it is one of those things that many tiny little details, the tiny million little gears and cogs that create the clockwork that is this game. And that's just many of those things that kind of go roll in and roll down. Let's see. Right. And that freighter's probably gone by now. And that guy, that pirate ship already left. I don't want to, I want to keep it around. I just don't want it on that page right now. So let's go ahead and put it back here that way, because it's kind of affiliated with this place now, so I suspect it went out to raid the ships and stuff and get more loot and bring crap back in, because that's what they do. Alright, so we're at Second Chance, which I haven't done anything with, or we're now at Kepis Folly, and it appears to me that my shuttle, the shuttle didn't do much last cycle. It used 1 ton of fuel to come over, but it's basically sitting because I'm waiting to get that sample if I can. So I have 2 cycles left. This will be next cycle, and then they will have to return to Fairwind to resupply to see if they were successful. And we are still at only 40% of the planet, so we are going to go ahead and Kepis Folly, and this is the Jan Kuro Explore Planet, and let's get that. You get it. Page 30. That's what I was going back looking for. Page 30. So, planetary exploration. Let's see which chart we're going to use. 22 is chart 1. And we just rolled 77 on chart 1. 77 is nothing. I'll take that. God knows there's enough crap going on these damn places as it is. The truth is, this particular run through has been interesting in part because there are several. The fact that I've gotten several inhabited systems on the lower tech levels so soon is interesting. And the amount of ship traffic and other stuff going on. Obviously, this is not an extremely remote system. There's a lot of activity and things like that going on and going into these. Now, by rights, I could be doing ship traffic rolls and event traffic rolls for these planets. But I'm going to tell you why I'm not. First off, they don't have an Imperium or Tech 1 level spaceport, landing field, or anything. So they are not going to have a ship traffic roll every cycle. They have no reason to have it. Even though their population is quite extensive and quite large, no. The second thing is for events. I don't have an established connection to this place yet. I do not have a ministry of flunkies and floobs on the planet. I don't have any direct influence over what's going on at Kepis Folly. So the events that are occurring on that planet would be unique to that planet, and that would require an entire new chart created specifically for Kepis Folly and its civilization. Because most of the event rolls that you will find in ship traffic and event rolls over here are geared for a place that's an official colony, at least, with tech levels of 1 or higher, and preferably under the nobility system. It's just the way it works. I mean, if this is a guild-run colony, the guild-run colony would get ship traffic rolls but no event rolls, because it's not an official house colony. I mean, now the NPC house that we now have a ship that's come from, and if we nail down where this place is and who they are, then they would have event roles and ship traffic roles. But the only time we would ever deal with those is if, let's say, I have a captain that's on that planet, and he's observing their events and observing the ship traffic as it comes in, because then it would have me would be justified in making those roles, because then I could interfere with or intervene with or interact with. So, for example, if this were a NPC held world or a guild controlled world, and I have a shuttle and a ship here, so potentially I could have one of them monitoring ship traffic and one of them monitoring the planetary events. And so if an event roll then is rolled and it's something that I want to interfere with or intervene with or make use of, I could tap it and make an effort to do so. It's just like the ship traffic roll. So when a merchant shows up, then my ship captain, or if I have a ministry or an embassy on the planet and I have a minister of commerce and labor flunky available, potentially they could go down to that ship captain and broker a deal directly and forego the local exchange, which means you would contact the ship captain and negotiate with them to see what kind of cargo's on board, and if it's worth something to you that you want to purchase, then you negotiate with them to do just that, and you purchase the cargo from them at the negotiated price, bypassing the house exchange altogether, or the NPC exchange. A guild does not have exchanges. Guilds don't work that way. They would have books, and their books are different from a government. Guilds technically aren't allowed to tax people, although a government guild is a thing, and that is something that you can encounter, and then you have to go through the BS that involves. The other side of that, it's just the other side of that sort of thing is that you don't really want to see these other places expand and grow significantly. So it's like population growth and things like this. I always roll if I have once I've established the population here, and I have any control over this, I might roll just to see keep up with what's going on, to keep it up to date. If I don't, then I'm not going to bother with it because I got enough other crap to roll. Why would I care? It's just like eventually if I find a trade world that I can go and purchase things and sell things to on a large scale, I would then set up an embassy there or a purchasing office there, and then I would have staff whose job is to monitor the ship traffic roll and the event rolls that are occurring on the trade world. Even though it is an NPC world, and not trade worlds generally are recognized by the Imperium, but not as a sanctioned house. So the trade world and its system is independent, more or less, kind of a free trade zone, but it's monitored and overseen by the Imperium at some level, and it's it's just a hair different from your house ran worlds. So we would approach it that way. And we also consider most trade worlds are going to be massive, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of millions, hundreds of billions of population. It's possible they could be a virtual hive world for if it rolled out that way. But the lion's share of what goes on there, we don't give a damn about. It's just like ship traffic and cargo. I mean, when you get to a trade world, pretty much everything's on the table. Anything that's in the equipment guide, anything that's in the blueprint guide, if you follow the parameters of acquiring that stuff, and you have the funds or the ability to negotiate to get it, it's up for grabs. Then it's just a matter of how do you get it from there back to where you need to use it, and it's like getting your surpluses shipped there. So it's just one of those things where, for example, most trade worlds are extremely industrialized, which means they are voracious consumers of all natural resources. So all resources, mineral resources, foodstuffs, water, oxygen, all of it. You could truck it by the shipload there and make top dollar off of it. On the other side of the coin, because they're manufacturing industrial centers, everything that's on the manufactured materials list is going to be there in abundance and very cheap. So you would be able to purchase computers at a penny a ton versus the credit a ton, a percent of a credit per versus a credit a ton kind of ratio. The modifiers for trade worlds. There's a whole chapter on this subject of trade worlds, by the way, in the book or in the core book here somewhere. It is what it is. All right. So once again, we're going to go ahead and explore the planet another. No, I already did that. I got to set the supplies, and this is going to be involving the other guy, so we're not going to deal with that one. And that brings us basically to the end of the opening main event for cycle 15. And in my list of things to do is grown. Right? So, there you go. Cycle 15 of a game not traveled. Blah.